Hello, and welcome to Team Liquid's Strategy Guide series for Aberrus the Shadowed Crucible, Dragonflight's new raid opening May 9th. I am Telegon, and today I'm going to break down the mechanics and strategy for normal and heroic Assault of the Zaqali. Now, let's hop into how to defeat Warlord Cagni. This is a two-phase fight. In the first, we fight Warlord Cagni, as well as waves of adds on both sides of the arena. In the second phase, we fight only Warlord Cagni as we attempt to stop him from breaching the Elder's door. Barrier Backfire is a white mechanic in Heroic, present in both Phase 1 and 2. On Normal, triggering Backfire Barrier is not necessarily a wipe, but does result in large amounts of otherwise avoidable damage that could easily result in a wipe. In Phase 1, Zaqali wall climbers climb up to the play space and attempt to reach the Elder's door. If they do, they trigger Barrier Backfire, which again, on Heroic cannot be allowed to happen, and should be avoided on Normal. In Phase 2, the boss, Warlord Cagni, will periodically cast Catastrophic Slam, which must be adequately soaked, otherwise, Barrier Backfire will be triggered and you will cause a wipe. Now, let's dive deeper into the first phase. You'll want to split your raid into two teams that separate onto the playspace's left and right platforms to deal with the waves of adds that will climb up and onto the arena. The encounter's boss, Warlord Cagni, will periodically move from platform to platform by way of devastating leap. A visual will appear where the boss will land. Upon resolution, he will deal high damage to all players within 12 yards, after which molten fissures will propagate away from his model. Make sure to dodge both him landing and the resulting projectiles. The boss will also cast a tank mechanic called Heavy Cudgel, dealing large amounts of physical damage to players in a frontal cone, and causing cave rubble to fall nearby. Ensure your tank faces the boss away from players, and dodge any ground effects that appear. After the cave rubble swirlies resolve, interactive rocks will remain. Right-clicking on a rock supplies you with an extra action button, that if pressed near an ad spawning highlight, which manifests as a soft orange glow, will kill that ad before it appears. You'll want to employ this mechanic in a way that benefits your raid the most. Now, let's talk about the types of adds that spawn in Phase 1. The most important ad that spawns in the fight is called a Magma Mystic. They cast a shield called Molten Barrier, which causes ramping raid damage while the shield persists. You'll want to allocate your damage and healing cooldowns efficiently to deal with this mechanic. The Magma Mystic will periodically debuff random players with Magma Flow, which is a magical dot which should be dispelled. The mob will also cast Lava Bolt, which should be interrupted whenever possible. The Flame-bound Huntsman casts Blazing Spear, which targets several players, and after several seconds, those players explode for damage in a small radius. The spear remains as a ground effect for a short duration, before exploding in a medium radius. Your goal here should be to minimize the effect this mechanic has on other players in your raid. The Obsidian Guard casts Scorching Roar, which deals heavier damage to players within a large radius over 1.5 seconds. You should be aware of the potential danger of this mechanic if paired with other sources of damage. This mob also casts Volcanic Shield on Heroic, which targets a player with a Magma Beam. Simply stand still if you are targeted with this mechanic, and allow other players to avoid the beam. Arbalest Fire will periodically cause swirly-style ground effects with a short resolution along the ramparts, where we fight waves of adds. Take care to avoid these swirlies. Let us now continue onto Phase 2, which begins when the boss reaches 25% HP. As previously mentioned, during this phase, the boss casts a soak ability called Catastrophic Slam, where upon resolution he charges the door and loses energy based on the number of players who are present in the soak. The energy loss should be equal to 10 energy per player inside the soak, meaning that if the boss has 100 energy when he casts this mechanic, we require 10 players to be inside the soak. Furthermore, on Heroic, soaking this mechanic applies a debuff called Weakened Vitality, which is a simple damage taken amp intended for you to define two unique soak groups for this mechanic. The boss drains life from his Phoenix during this phase, regaining 10% of his HP, and gaining a buff that causes him to pulse rot raid damage to the entire raid every 1.5 seconds. Finally, Cagni maintains his tank ability from Phase 1, with a raid mechanic expansion. When Flaming Cudgel is cast in this phase, every player explodes for heavier damage in a 6-yard radius. It is important that players spread appropriately for this mechanic, as even 2 players stacked on each other will most likely result in both of their deaths. With that being said, we very much hope you found this guide useful. Please feel free to leave feedback or commentary below this video, and make sure to keep your eye on this channel as more guides will be coming out soon. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.